Hello everyone, a very good morning to you all. So children, how was my last video? Did you understood the interdependence of living and non-living things? How living things they depend on non-living things. I hope your concept is clear. Let's move in the next part of this chapter. Children, we all know that plants and animals are different from each other, but both plants and animals are dependent on each other. How? Today we will learn in this video. Animals, they depend on plants for food, which you know that. All animals depend directly or indirectly on plants for food. How directly and indirectly? I am telling you. All herbivores are plant eating animals, say so they directly depend on plants for food. But all carnivores, they are not plant eating animals. What are they? They are animal eating animals. They eat the flesh of other animals. So they eat the herbivores. Carnivores depend on herbivores. So this shows that carnivores indirectly depend on plants for food. If no plants, then no herbivores, and if no herbivores, then there will be no food for the carnivores. So we conclude that animals depend on plants for food. Moreover, plants are the homes for many animals. A number of animals and birds are dependent on plants for shelter. Okay, you know that bird build its nest on trees, whereas squirrels, monkeys and other small insects, they live and they just move from one place to another place with the help of these tree branches. So these animals depend on plants for their shelter. Yes, another one way in which animals depend on plants is the very important thing for which we are alive, that is oxygen. You know that plants make food during the daytime because of the presence of sunlight, carbon dioxide and water. And during photosynthesis, the plants give out oxygen. And that oxygen is being taken by the animals during respiration. Isn't it? Plants also take oxygen during respiration, that is during the night time, but during the daytime, plants take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen, and that oxygen is being taken by us and other animals. So, this shows that we all animals are dependent on plants for food, for shelter, and for oxygen. If no plants, then animals cannot survive. But plants are also dependent on animals. How? That is the first thing. Plants use carbon dioxide, which is given by the animals. As I told you now, that during respiration, animals take in oxygen and they give out carbon dioxide. And this carbon dioxide is used by plants to prepare their food during photosynthesis. So, plants, they depend on animals in order to use carbon dioxide. Another one thing is plants depend on animals in order to reproduce. That is seed dispersal, which we have already discussed in the first part of this chapter, and flower pollination. Animals such as butterflies, honeybees, and some wasp houseflies, they just help the plants in reproduction by pollinating flowers. And you know what is flower pollination? That is to transfer the pollen grains from one flower to another flower. Okay? So, many variety of plants grow because of these birds and animals which help the plants in order to reproduce. Also, by scattering the seeds, they eat the fruit and they just throw the seeds, they scatter the seeds, they spread the seeds here and there. They do not know where is the dustbin. Yes, so plants also depend on animals so that these animals will help the plants to grow either by flower pollinating or by dispersal of seeds. Now, children, there are certain animals that help in making the soil fertile. You know what is the meaning of fertile? You remember? Which is suitable for plant growth. So, there are certain animals which live in the soil which make the soil fertile. How? The animals which are living deep inside the soil, they make the soil very loose. So, as you know, when a plant grows, its roots get deep inside the soil. Once the root goes inside the soil, it gets a very nice amount of air from the loosening part, which the air can enter from that loosening soil, and thus the soil becomes fertile. Animals like your earthworm and small other insects that live inside the soil, it makes the soil loose, and which further helps to make the soil fertile. Also, the dead animals and the dead plants which die. So on that dead plants and dead animals, bacteria and fungus they used to grow. You also know when anything become decay, becomes rotten, then small tiny fungus or bacteria they used to grow on it. Okay, so the nutrients which is present in the dead living parts, in the dead things which is already present, okay, so these nutrients of their bodies mix up with the soil, and which also gives the soil a nutrients and makes the soil fertile. Okay, so from this also we learn that animals also make the soil fertile. These animals help in making the soil fertile, which is also important for the soil also. And if the soil is fertile, then good plants will grow. Yes, so we learned about how plants and animals are interdependent on each other. So now, children, we come to the last part of this chapter, that is food relationships. As the name says, food relationships means the interdependence between plants and animals and how their food passes from one to another. As you can clearly see in this picture, how the food passes to another, then from another to the third person, then fourth, and in this way it goes like a circle, it goes like a chain which is interconnected one to another. So these series of living things showing which one eats, and this chain, this series of food passing from one to another, connecting from one to another, is called your food chain. I hope you remember this term. You have heard this term before. So this is food chain and food relationships between plants and animals. Food chain always starts from the producer, that is your plants, trees, grasses. So it starts the producer, and producers are the plants or trees. Then these producers, these plants or grasses are eaten by a herbivore, which is your primary consumer. And in this picture, it is a grasshopper. Then the grasshopper is eaten by the secondary consumer, which is your carnivore, that is frog. Okay, children, this frog or this carnivore depends indirectly on producer. I told you before, if no plants, then no herbivores, and if no herbivores, then this secondary consumer will not get the food. Okay, then from secondary consumer comes to your tertiary consumer, that is your snake. Snake eats the frog. And who eats the snake? Who eats the snake, children? The owl, who is the final consumer. Children, in your book, it is given up to secondary consumer. You can learn up to that. It is only for your extra knowledge. Okay, and this food chain you might have seen somewhere. So the beginning is from producer. Grass is eaten by grasshopper. Grasshopper was eaten by frog. Then the snake eats the frog, and owl eats the snake. Then Children, as you know, it is the reality. All the plants and animals, they die. Everyone die. No one survives. Isn't it? Once the dead plants or dead animals, they die, it is called a decomposer. Okay, their body becomes decay. After their body becomes rotten, decay, decompose, then bacteria and fungi starts to grow on them. These bacteria and fungi, this grow on these dead bodies, and the nutrients which are already present on this dead body, it gets mixed up with the soil, and their nutrients are being taken by the soil, and which makes the soil fertile, which we have already learned. So this shows how the plants and animals, they are interdependent, and they are also helpful for the soil once they die. Okay, so this is all about your chapter 14, interdependence. It is completely interdepending of food, interdepending of living, non-living things, interdepending of plants and animals. Okay, and also interdependent between plants, animals, and helpful for the soil also. Okay, so here we come to the end of this chapter. I'll be sending you the exercise questions, looking back questions. Write down neatly in your science copy. We will meet in the next class with a new chapter. Thank you, children. Bye bye.